Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the Steven Universe Retrospectives, and today we're going to be discussing episodes 123 and 124 of Steven Universe, Dugout and The Good Lars, and believe it or not, these episodes are actually going to be kind of plot important. Well, at the end of them. For the most part, they're kind of filler, but they are somewhat important to what's going to be happening in later episodes. But for now, what happens in these episodes that constitutes being important? Well, for starters, Dugout actually focuses on Connie's father. What's going on is that while Steven and Connie are just kind of walking around minding their own business and and enjoying some fry bits, they end up running into Connie's father, who it turns out is being stationed at Funland because apparently Funland's been having some problems with intruders lately, and so Doug's station, which I'm just gonna call him Doug from now on for the rest of the video because that is his name. Doug's security firm sent him to watch the place and find out who was breaking in, and he offers Steven and Connie a chance to tag along because he thinks maybe something exciting will happen, or it could just be some kids loitering, which also leads to a funny scene where Onion is loitering right there. Either way, Steven and Connie are happy to do it, and so they join Doug on a stakeout of Funland, and, well, at first, it's just how stakeouts normally go. It's boring, nothing really seems to be happening, and as a result, Steven and Connie are trying to find ways to keep themselves entertained and engaged in what they're doing, including going through a box of costume supplies that was stolen from a costume shop, and thus Doug had to confiscate it as evidence. However, as they're all just goofing around minding their own business, immediately they hear a crash, and so the trio end up running out to see what's going on, and they find that the gates of Funland have been literally ripped open. Like, it's not just like someone opened them, no, there's a hole right at the base, which even Doug's like, this doesn't look like someone just like cut through the wires. This looks like it was just smashed open. As such, Steven and Connie find this to be very interesting, and Doug, well, while he does seem a bit confused, he does try to put on a brave face for the kids and says that they should go and investigate. They'll find out what's going on. So Steven and Connie happily joining them, taking some of the even taking disguises of their own. Which, if you expect me to remember their names, I don't. I forgot them as soon as I heard them. I did not care that much. Sorry. But either way, the trio end up going through Funland and begin trying to call out for whoever it is that snuck in. But it looks like they seem to be missing them. Although as they wander around, as Doug ends up kind of waving his flashlight around. They soon find that they see a shadow that darts around a corner. When they go and investigate, they find that whoever it is they're chasing seems to have run into one of the rides, which I think is a tilt-a-whirl. I don't know. It looks like a spaceship. It's one of those rides that's supposed to move fast, and you're supposed to be on the inside, and the G-force keeps you stuck to this inside, stuck to the inside while it spins around fast. But either way, the door is left open, so they think, oh, we can corner them in there. But when the trio run in, they find that the ride is mysteriously vacant. And as they go inside further to investigate, well, the door ends up slamming shut and the ride turns on, which in turn traps Doug, Connie, and Steven inside. And while Doug attempts to hit the off switch by throwing his flashlight, all that really does is cause the flashlight to fly right into his face, thanks to the laws of physics, and which even leads to an even funnier scene where he tries to throw it vertically, and all he really does is just leave it flying in the air, which just keeps smacking Doug in the face every single time they turn around. Thankfully, Steven's able to get himself free, and the center of the ride is not spinning, so he's able to hit the off switch there, which in turn allows them to get out. But it's clear that they are not alone in the park, and Steven and Connie start wondering maybe it's like a gem monster or a gem mutant, or maybe worse, a homeworld gem, since if it was one of the latter two, they wouldn't have been smart enough to lock them inside the ship. And while Doug is clearly again shaken by this, he still tries to put on a brave face and go for it with the kids. And sure enough, as they continue traveling to the park, whoever it is they're chasing seems to be kind of messing with them, as the power in the park seems to turn on when they go to one of the stalls that has a wire mesh in front of it. Hold on one second. Sorry about that dog stuff. But anyway, yeah, like I was saying, as the trio continues pursuing the intruders, they end up whoever the pursuers are, they seem to be clearly messing with them. As when the trio steps in front of a stall, we see a shadow of the intruder throw off the wire fence that ends up knocking Doug over before whoever it is makes a retreat down one of the streets of Funland. Steven and Connie are thankfully able to keep up with them thanks to Steven's abilities, despite the obstacles that the intruder is throwing in their way. But ultimately, whoever this is ends up apparently running down a alleyway, and so Steven and Connie believe they have them cornered, and so they end up looking into the alley to see who it is, while Doug ends up clumsily following after them, and we see Onion seemingly cowering there. And once Steven and Connie see him, Onion almost looks elated as he runs up to them and hugs them before saying in his weird language about something. Of course, Steven, and so Steven and Connie believe that Onion was the one they were chasing after, which, when Doug sees, he doesn't think this makes any sense, especially because, one, they saw a big shadow, and then likewise there was that big mesh and plus there was that big hole in the fence, although they have counters for that, because one, when he's hit with a flashlight, the shadow does look bigger, and, well, Steven has seen Onion use a blowtorch, and to even further support this, when Connie was going into the fence, she did see a bit of red fabric caught on it, and sure enough, there's a bit of Onion's pants that's been ripped off, so sure enough, they do surmise that this was Onion, which actually disappoints Doug something fierce, because he wanted this to be something bigger, and the reason why he wanted to be bigger was because he was trying to impress Connie, and yeah, Doug lays it all out on the table. Put simply, he wanted to show his daughter that he could be exciting, because, well, compared to his daughter and his wife's lives, well, his is nothing special. His wife is a successful doctor who saves lives on a daily basis. His daughter is working alongside a team of intergalactic warriors to save the galaxy. Him, he's a literal security guard. Which, as a result, he kind of feels lesser, and he thought this was his opportunity to show Connie that he wasn't just her goofy old dad. Which, yeah, I kind of get that. When you're in a family of people who are spectacular in their own right, you can kind of understand. You can kind of get that feeling of feeling insignificant compared to them. However, Connie reassures her father that she doesn't mind him being her silly little dad. She's already got a lot of serious stuff in his life. She just likes, and so it's always nice to just see him around, just hang out with him, to be with him, which I do kind of like. It is somewhat reassuring it's nice and reassuring / reaffirming to be told by the people you love, you're good just the way you are. So, I dig it. And so Doug digs it as well, accepts the compliment, and so they escort Onion out of Funland, and while Doug tries to charge Onion with the hole in the fence, well, when Onion sees that, he seems to nod no, as if he's saying, no, I'm not paying for that, and Steven and Connie say maybe they should let him off the hook, but, well, as Doug takes Steven and Connie away and they leave Onion there, we soon see that there was a reason why Onion even came to Funland at all. Because, yeah, it's clear he snuck in, but it turns out that Doug might have been onto something. Because once Doug takes the kids away, and Onion is standing in the light of Funland, we see two shadows coming closer. One big and burly, one small and flying on watery wings. And that's where that episode ends. Which also brings us to the good Lars. And, of course, as you can tell by the episode, it's a Lars-focused episode. And this one, what I kind of like about the episode, really, is that it kind of puts in perspective how much Lars has these moments where he can develop as a character, yet continuously backpedals. And it's a showcased here, as we learn, that Lars loves to cook. And it's showcased because Lars created pumpkin bread, and when he made the dish, he did it in a way that it looks like an actual pumpkin, as their actual slices, each of the slices of bread is designed together, held together with paste, held together with cream and so forth, and it looks like a pumpkin, so you can take a piece apart and eat it. It's actually a pretty creative idea. And basically, he's presenting it to Steven because Sadie forced him to, and of course, Steven loves it, while Sadie tries to use it as an example, say, come on, people love it. Lars, well, he's still not budging, because Steven loves everything. So basically, he's not using that as a base. He doesn't think that's a good baseline to judge his talent. However, as this is going on, Buck Dewey ends up coming in, and immediately Lars hides the pumpkin bread, and he asks what Buck wants, and Buck admits that he wants Lars and Sadie to come to a party he's doing. To come to a party. Well, more specifically, he wants Lars, Sadie, and Steven. He's basically doing. He's like I said. He's doing he's not a party. It's a potluck, and he wants the three of them to come to just hang out, chill, and just shoot the shit. Shoot the shit. I hate tongue twisters. The point is, he wants them all there, and Lars, being Lars, to try and impress him, says, "Yeah, I'll come. Yeah, bingo bongo." Which, yeah, that's apparently the first time he said that. So Buck's like, okay, cool, see you later, but once Buck's out of earshot, Lars immediately is mortified, as even he's wondering, bingo bongo, where did I even get that? Get that. And so Sadie and Steven think this is an opportunity for Lars to show off his skills in cooking, because if he doesn't believe Sadie and Steven, maybe he'll believe the cool kids if he brought a dish to them. And Lars, well, he decides to take them up on that offer. But the question is, what should he bring? What can he actually prepare? And so as he, Sadie, and Steven go back to his house to think of one, it turns out that Lars does have something he has in mind. As underneath his mattress, he has a secret cookbook, and in that cookbook is a recipe for something called an ube roll. I'm sure it exists, but for the life of me, I've never tried it. But he he basically explains that it's like a sweet potato or a yam, so to speak. And basically it's something special that you can take ube paste, get cream, just roll it up. It's basically, you basically do it right, and it's supposed to be a specialty. And so they get to work getting the ingredients, and so we get a little montage of the trio making the ube roll. And while Steven and Sadie don't have any idea what they're doing, Lars is clearly in the zone as he actually manages to mix things together. And sure enough, he does create an ube roll and serves it to Steven and Sadie to taste test it. And well, they love it. They love it so much that they end up eating the whole thing before Lars can even get a chance to taste it. So with Lars thinking, okay, good, that works, I'll bring that to the potluck, Sadie ends up leaving and lets him know that she'll meet them there. And while Steven stays behind and is happy to watch Lars make a new roll, Lars, it turns out, is still not very enthusiastic. And so, as Steven prods him, Lars finally admits why he's not feeling so good. It's once again dealing with looking cool to these people, because yeah, while he likes to cook, he thinks that if everybody knew that he liked to cook, he wouldn't look cool to them, and so as a result, it's something that he hides. And so while he knows that if he brought something to the potluck, everyone would love it, it would be awesome, it would kick ass, he thinks that their opinion of him would change because he doesn't think they want to be friends with someone who likes to cook, because he thinks that liking to cook is lame, and so he tries his best to hide it. But Steven assures Lars that these people invited him to the potluck because they want to get to know him. They want to get closer to him. They're already his friends, and basically, if they're truly his friends, and they will appreciate him for who he is, and appreciate that he likes to cook. And if they don't, well, then it sucks for them. It sucks for them. It's their loss. And what I like is that Lars hears it's like, well, when did you get so wise? And I do kind of, which I like, and so Steven seems to get Lars pumped up enough that he will come to the potluck later with a fresh ube roll. And so the episode cuts to later as Steven arrives at the potluck, and we see something that he's made special for it, which are supposed to be these. It's a special sushi that he made, which doesn't apparently have any sushi in it. It's explained in the video. Basically, it looks like a sushi, but it's made from sushi rice. It's mixed with mayonnaise. It's mixed with mayonnaise, mixed with chips, and so on. I recommend just looking at the short. It's actually pretty good, and I honestly would love to try it sometime. My point is, he brings that to the potluck, and so he arrives, and of course, Jenny, sour cream, and Buck are there. Well, sour cream especially, since the potluck's at his house. But Lars is still not present, and Steven thinks that he's just coming later. And of course, when the instant he says that, the doorbell rings, and he goes to check it, thinking it's Lars. But no, it's only Sadie who brought plates. Turns out Lars is running a little late, and so while the gang is happy to see Sadie because, well, she brought plates, and well, that means they don't have to do the dishes anymore, Steven decides that he'll go look for Lars, and sure enough, Lars seems to be scared. Says when he goes around town, no one seems to have seen him. His parents haven't seen him. Petey hasn't seen him. He even tries jumping high into the sky and calls his name, but there's no response. And then when he eventually tries calling his phone, there's no answer, and he leaves a message. Well, as Steven is leaving the message, he goes back to Sour Cream's house, and well, he soon discovers what happened to Lars, because as he looks in the dumpster outside, he sees what looks like a crushed ube roll. And Steven realizes that well, Lars bailed. As such, Steven kind of sighs, hangs up his phone, and goes inside, and he finds that, well, everybody's just chilling. They're all just kind of making music, goofing off, and we see that even Sadie's getting in on it as she's getting more comfortable being around them, and even sings along with their musical, which they all love and encourage. And so, but once they see that Steven's back, they ask what happened to Lars, and Steven makes the excuse that something came up and Lars couldn't make it. So Sadie ends up getting it immediately, but the rest of the cool kids buy it, and so they continue with the potluck until Sadie and Steven have to head out, and of course Sadie does ask, well, he just bailed, didn't he, before Steven shows her what's left of the ube roll in the garbage outside, showing that, yeah, he came and then chickened out. So as such, Steven and Sadie just kind of walk off, and of course we kind of see Sadie's frustration / disappointment in Lars, and how he constantly just he lives in his own little world in a bubble and is constantly sad. And she talks about how she would love to just make him happy, which I think is a bad thing considering the last time she tried that she marooned them. She marooned him on an island. So maybe want to push those thoughts out of your head. Which even when Sadie realizes, okay, I'm starting to sound like my mother here. I maybe need to work on myself a bit more. But either way, the conversation does get shifted to the potluck itself, and Sadie actually does mention how when she hung out with the cool kids, they were actually cool, and not like cool the way Lars thinks. They were just cool, chill. They're fun to get to know, and Sadie liked getting to know them. And she just hopes that Lars would want to get the chance, but he's again just wrapped up in his own little world. And as such, as Steven and Sadie just kind of go their separate ways, they do mention how they do kind of wish that they'll hopefully see him later. And that maybe he'll get the chance one day. And so they get to a crossroad. Get the crossroad in the path they're on. And so after Steven says goodnight, Sadie, they end up leaving with Steven going down one road and Sadie another. But unfortunately for Sadie, she should have looked to make sure she wasn't followed, because coming up behind her are the same shadows that were looming over Onion in Funland. And that's where that episode ends. So, my thoughts on these episodes. Well, Dugout, I think, is a perfectly fine episode. It's nice that we get to see more of Connie's parents in this case, and we saw a bit more of Dr. Mahesh Warren in the Nightmare Hospital episode, as we saw her and Connie kind of clashing when Dr. Mahesh Warren caught her with Rose's sword. But I do like that we get to see more of Connie's dad. And from what we've seen of her dad before, he's clearly a dork. He's a doofus. And we've seen that personality displayed in various means, like when he complimented Greg on his outfit when he dropped Steven and Connie off, and how kind of goofy it was. How apparently he thinks he can drive in a snowstorm, but he just keeps messing and he just keeps slipping and sliding everywhere. It's kind of funny. Which I think is kind of funny. But now we get to see him kind of up front in the center, and yeah, he very much is a dork, but but at the same time, again, like I said, he's living in he's the one quirky normal guy in a household of spectacular people. Like I said, his wife is a doctor who saves lives on a daily basis and deals with her fair share of stress from her day-to-day life. But then then there's his daughter, and while at first she was also kind of a gifted prodigy that she could look up to him when she needed help, well, now she's training to be a warrior in a team of superpowered aliens. At that point, where's the line? At what point? Where's the finish line there? What's there to strive for? At this point, she's doing most of the legwork while you're just kind of there for support. And well, he's not happy with that. He doesn't resent his wife or daughter, of course, but he does want to show them that he's not a joke. And we kind of see that showcased throughout the episode, that while he is clearly out of his element when dealing with what's going on in Funland, he tries putting his best foot forward. When he sees the strange things through the gate, he clearly is like, what the hell, this isn't right, something's not right here. But then he sees Steven and Connie, and he's like, but we can take it, can't we, guys? And then when the theory is posited that whatever's going around in Funland might be gem-related, he clearly gets freaked out, but again, he tries putting his best foot forward and shows, no, I can do this. I can do this. We'll catch whoever this is. He's clearly trying to do good here. It's just the problem is he's out of his element. And sadly, the more he keeps trying, the more he kind of shows how he keeps goofing up. But we see that throughout the episode, as when he tried stopping the ride, he just ended up getting himself smacked in the face multiple times with his flashlight. And then likewise, when he was calling out whoever the intruder was, he wound up getting hit. He wound up getting hit in the face with a wire fence. And then even during the chase, one of the obstacles that was thrown out was that whoever was being chased wound up knocking over a gumball machine, which Steven and Connie are able to avoid thanks to Steven's floating powers, while he just slipped on them and wound up having to come to a skidding to a halt. So again, you can clearly see he's trying, and again, I like how in the end when he realizes that the intruder was Onion, not really, but for the purposes of the story, we'll pretend it was, that he's disappointed that he couldn't show off how cool he was. But what I do kind of like is that Connie reassures her dad that she still loves being around him. Even if he's not the big, impressive guy, she loves him for who he is. And that's kind of you can interpret that one of two ways. That either it's okay that he's not impressive, which can kind of sound like an insult, but I choose to interpret it the more positive way, that she really does genuinely care about him, and even if he doesn't do anything big or amazing, she's happy. She loves him just as he is, and and is happy with what he does. She's happy that he's there for her to lean on, for her to support her, to help pick her up, and so on and so forth. It's honestly really sweet. It's honestly really sweet, and I do kind of like that. Essentially, it's a family dynamic that, yeah, she may be doing better things, but she's always going to need her dad. I love that. I like that. It's sweet. Nice. Otherwise, though, it is just pretty much just it's mostly just a kind of down to earth episode as they continue as we see the trio trying to pursue the intruder, and likewise we see the slapstick that comes from seeing Doug as he tries to be intimidating, and then things just kind of blow up in his face. It's nice and funny, and but again, the episode does well in kind of showcasing that something's going on behind the scenes, as well when they track down Onion. Well, it's clear he's not the intruder, because things don't match up. While Steven and Connie do end up having explanations for those things, well, we see that silhouettes throughout the park are different. And when they found Onion, his attitude wasn't of someone who just got caught. It was of someone who was in relief. And while Steven and Connie chalked up his relief to thinking that he thought that Steven, Connie, and Doug were strangers trying to capture him, well, it's clear it's clear that through his weird language, he is trying to tell them something, that he saw something was pursuing him. And then likewise in the end, when Doug said you had to pay for breaking the fence, when he pointed at it and was like, and then nodded no, or shook his head no, in reality, what he was really doing was saying, no, that wasn't me. At the end of the final shot of the episode with the shadows, it confirms that something was in that park, and it was clearly after him. It's honestly kind of chilling. I like that. Which I like. It does really works well. So I dig that. As for the good Lars, that one is another episode that I think it feels, I don't want to say it's a breath of fresh air, but in a way, it's like the personification of how tiring Lars's story is. Here's the thing. One of the complaints that I and many other people have with the Lars' episodes is because they keep retreading the exact same lesson over and over and over. That Lars is a dumbass who lives too much in his head, and that if he wants people to like him more, he needs to be less shallow and more open with who he is. That he actually needs to be kind, considerate of others, and ultimately, the problem with that is that Lars keeps needing to relearn that lesson from episode to episode. By the end of every episode, he seems to get that what he was doing was wrong and tries to make amends for it. But unfortunately, as a character, it's like he's stuck in a rut. And no matter how many times the lesson is taught to him, he just keeps repeating the behaviors over and over, which in a way is kind of realistic. People tend to, not when it comes to change, people have a hard time doing it. But what I like about that is that in the episode, it's kind of that attitude is actually kind of thrown in Lars's face, so to speak. Because in the episode, we finally learn a bit more about Lars. We learn a little bit more about Lars, that ultimately he likes to do something that most people would be considered nerdy. Like he likes to, or not manly or whatever. That he likes to cook, and he's good at it. He has a personal cookbook of dishes that he would like to make, but he's afraid of people learning that he can cook because he thinks it's not cool, so to speak, and that if people learned about it, that they would ostracize him for it, which I understand. There is kind of, when you want people to like you, there is that fear in your head that people will reject you if they learn about your interests and so forth. And likewise, while Lars clearly puts his all into making his food, especially when he made the ube roll, which Steven and Sadie thought was delicious, what he said to Steven was true, that while he knows what he's going to make will rule, he's afraid of how the cool kids will look at him, and ultimately that fear is what drives him to just kind of chicken out. And again, I get that as well. There are many times when people are presented with opportunities where they could actually take a step forward, get out of their comfort zone, and actually do something that they might be proud of and happy for. And unfortunately, sometimes doing that is kind of scary. And when you try to step out of your comfort zone and try and move forward to actually change, to actually show to the world, this is who I am, this is what I want to do, well, the comfort zone seems a lot more, well, comfortable. And so that's what happens with Lars in the episode. Despite Steven hyping him up and telling him, look, these people are your friends. They like you for who you are, and if this ends up changing their opinion on you, well, then it sucks for them because now they're missing the chance to get to know you. Unfortunately, Lars that does seem to do the trick for the moment. Lars, unfortunately, again slips back into his old habits, as it's clear he did at least arrive to the potluck, but then at the last second decided, no, I'm not doing this, and threw the ube roll away because he was just too afraid. And it's tragic, and I love how Steven and Sadie react when they realize that's what Lars did. That he arrived at the party and just chucked it away. Like you can hear the disappointment in their voices and how ultimately they want Lars to change, not for them, but for himself. Because as Sadie admitted, when she got to know the cool kids, they were cool. They were chill, and we've seen them be chill throughout the series. While they have their occasional moments of dumbassery because they're kids, like when they told Steven, "Oh, why don't you just abandon your duties for one night and just come chill and not inform the Gems about the spaceship they found," or when Buck tried to spread around that poor drawing that Steven did of his father because he thought it was funny, and then had to get that lesson thrown and had to have the kind of a taste of his own medicine when Steven did the same thing to him. At the end of the day, though, they are cool kids. They are friendly. They like getting to know people. While they tend to sometimes act shallow, they're anything but. They genuinely like hanging out with Steven and Sadie because they like them for who they are. When they get to know Sadie, they actually encourage her, "Hey, that's really nice. Keep doing that." They like hanging out with Steven because they love hanging out with Steven. They love his personality. They like what he does. And Steven's helped them out on plenty of occasions. A lot, like, again, with one big example being sour cream with his father. They are good people. It's just that Lars is afraid. Is just afraid of them getting to know him. Lars is just afraid of getting to know them as he is afraid of them getting to know him. He doesn't see them as anything more than a stepping stone. That if he can look cool with them, then he can look cool in general. And that's what ultimately is Lars's biggest flaw. That how he acts and how he typically behaves is based on how he believes everybody perceives him, and that belief is what drives him to keep making these decisions, because that belief drives his fear, and that fear is what keeps bringing him back and turning him into that condescending asshole who seems to think that he's better than everyone else. And the thing is, it's clear he wants to change. At the end of every episode, he clearly does feel guilty for what he's doing and tries to somewhat make amends for it. He does genuinely want. It's clear that there is some part of him that wants to put in the effort to be better. But again, he keeps getting pulled back into his comfort zone because ultimately he feels safer there, and he feels that if he wants to rise to better places and get in with the cool kids, then that's the best way to do it. That he has to cast off the things that he likes because he thinks that might be dorky and that people will look down on him for them. And at the end of the day. And yet, at the end of the day, the thing that makes what Lars needs to truly realize is that if he wants to make true friends, then he does need to let that side of him out. Which, sadly, even in this episode, Lars has not learned, and we see how that lack of learning is affecting his relationship with his friends. Because at the end of the day, Steven and Sadie still care about him, and are ultimately just disappointed that he chickened out. But they also understand, and mostly are just kind of upset that he hasn't learned, that he should learn, that he does need to learn, and I like that. I like that they kind of I love that they kind of exemplify that, and we see how Lars's attitude is affecting his friends and how they want to help him, but they don't really know how. At the very least, in Sadie's case, she has an idea, but knows it's not a good one, so she doesn't go near that. So I dig that. I like that. On top of that, the stuff with Sadie and the cool kids, that's plot development. There is more stuff there, as we see Sadie getting to know the cool kids more, and they're just jamming. When Sadie first sees them, she's just as nervous being around them as Lars is, except instead, while Lars puts on mock confidence, she's clearly out of her element. But again, the cool kids are happy to get to know her. They want her to be a part of their little group, and they welcome her. They chat, they talk, and they do music together. And by the end, you see that Sadie is genuinely having fun. And again, it's something small, but it's a seed being planted for future stories, which I dig. I like that. But of course, there's still the ending as well, as we see that as as Steven and Sadie part ways, and we see Sadie as he's walking home, we see that someone's pursuing her, and well, but simply, it's clear that if Onion's a baseline, that Sadie should be running. So overall, both episodes, I think, are perfectly fine, and ultimately that's all I really think they are. They're fine. They're mostly slice of life stuff with little droplets of something bigger going on. Dugout, I think, is a nice, fine episode where we see more of Connie's parent and how he kind of feels compared to his more extravagant family members. But ultimately, they don't care that he is not that extravagant. They love him for who he is, and they're happy, and they're still always happy to have him around, and they still appreciate him for what he does. So I like that. It's nice, and it does lead to some fun and goofy antics, while also dropping the hint of what's going on with Onion and his pursuers. And likewise, the good Lars, I think, is fine, and now it does kind of exemplify everything that Lars has done, continues developing his character, and further showcases more about why he keeps falling back into the trends that he does, while showcasing how his friends are taking it in, while also kind of developing stuff with them for future stories, especially with with Sadie growing closer to the cool kids, as well as how Steven and Sadie react to learning he chickened out. And of course, there's also the hint that Sadie's being pursued by whoever was pursuing Onion, with the shadows looming over her. So I dig it. I like it. So overall, both are perfectly fine episodes, and I enjoy them. So yeah, I think that's about it. I thank you for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson, and while I would normally say I'll see you next week, that's going to be kind of up in the air. While I do want to do a vlog next week, something is going to be happening next week that is not going to be... I don't like it. I feel like it's going to have an effect on me. I'll explain what it is in a video that I want to do on Sunday, but it's 50-50 whether there'll be a video next week. If I can do it, I'll do it, but otherwise you might end up waiting 2 weeks for the next Steven Universe retrospective. So apologies if you end up waiting 2 weeks, but if I can rack up the nerve, I will still do a video next week. So till then, I hope I see you in either 1 week or 2 weeks, depending on when the video comes out. So till then, I hope you have a good night. I hope that you're cool. I hope that wherever you are, it's cooler than where I am. And as always, I will hopefully see you next time as we finally learn exactly who those shadowy figures were that were pursuing Steven's friends. So till then, hope you have a good Friday and take care.